Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of NintendoFuse's Industry Talk. I'm your host, Barry, and today I'm joined by my very special guest, Leonard Herman.
How you doing?
Now, Leonard here is an author, and his latest revision of his book, Phoenix 4, The History of the Video Game Industry, is available right now on Amazon.com. But before we get into the book, Leonard, why don't you begin and tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about yourself?
Well, I've been writing since I was 10 years old, which was a long time ago. I've been playing video games since I first played Pong in 1972, so that dates me. Bought my first video game system, which was the Atari VCS, in May 1979, and I've been hooked since. Uh, I was always a collector. I collected comic books, Matchbox cars, and baseball cards. And so when I got my VCS, I started collecting cartridges. And it got to the point where just too many came out, and I decided, well, there should be a guide to tell the good ones from the bad ones. So I started writing a book called ABC of the VCS. And that was going to be a directory of every game that was available. And I started that around 1982. And the problem when you write a book like that, it never ends, as long as there's new games coming out. The crash came and that ended it. But I wanted to still write a book about video games, and I looked around and I saw there was no video game history books around. So I wrote one.
Yeah, and that's the incredible thing is that there really weren't, and there's still little pieces of history, but your book is considered by many the Bible of video game history. How does it feel to hear that about your book? Like when people say, "Oh yeah, your book is the Bible," what's
It's
that
pretty
like?
cool. Well, I mean, what can I say? It is pretty cool. I mean, but the problem is it's not in stores, so a lot of people don't know about it. And one problem I had, it's been about 15 years between the third edition and the fourth edition. And when the fourth edition came out, I thought, wow, all these people who bought the third edition, they're all going to go running to buy the fourth one. But there's a new generation of gamers out there, and a lot of them never heard of it.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I hadn't heard of your book until Phoenix 4. And I've been gaming since
Mm-hmm.
1982, and been very big into the industry in my history, and I never heard of it. And I was like, "What? How did I not hear about this?" I did a little research. I haven't read it, but I did a little research on it. I was like, "This sounds great." Like when I get some downtime, which is very rare, but hopefully maybe this summer, I plan to pick up a copy and I plan to read it. Now you did mention like this is the fourth edition. And it took 15 years between the third and the fourth. Why 15 years for that? And how did that differ from the first to the second to the third?
Uh, well, this first edition came out in 1994. The second edition came out in 1996, and basically all I did was add 2 new chapters. Then when the third edition came out in 2001, I added 4 more chapters, whatever. But when I decided to do the fourth edition, I started rewriting the whole book. A lot of stuff in the old editions are wrong, and new information was found, so it needed a complete rewrite. Plus, I wanted to include all Japanese history, which wasn't in the first 3 volumes. Plus, I have European history, which wasn't in any of the volumes. So it just took a long time to research and to start writing the chapters. Also published Bill Kunkel's book, Confessions of the Game Doctor, and Ralph Baer's book. Oh my God!
I forget it too.
Oh my God! This is very bad. This is gonna be edited, right?
No, we're gonna keep this in.
Oh,
We're
oh my
keeping this
God!
in.
I
They're on
gotta
the
look.
spot here.
I gotta look it up.
Oh, that's no problem there. So for those of you that don't know, while he does look this up, Ralph Baer, the father of
Told you I'm getting
Pong.
old. So.
Yeah, you're getting old. You're getting old. Now, did you talk with Ralph? Did you work with him with his book, or did you just say I'll publish it?
Ralph Baer and I were really close friends.
Oh man, I'm so jealous. That a lot of people say Miyamoto is an idol, but I mean, he is like the original idol. And I did get to see him once, but I never had that pleasure of a personal conversation, and I would have loved to.
No, he was like a father figure for me. And I'm still, it's 3.5 years since he died. I still think of him every single day.
Oh
Video
man,
games in the beginning. How stupid am I? And I made up the title too.
it shows character. You know, we all forget things. No one's
Anyway, when he
perfect.
wrote the book, he was writing it for a few years, and he just asked me, "Do you want to publish it?" So I said, "Sure."
That
Uh,
is so cool.
and Bill Kunkel, that was a funny story because someone suggested that he write a book, and he said, "Who would be stupid enough to publish my book?" And someone said, "Lenny Herman." So that's how his book came about.
Hey, you know what? You know that's not stupid. That's great. You know, because I think.
Oh, I'm
Go ahead.
sorry. Well, I was about to say what Ralph's book before I got the brain freeze was either both those books. They were both published in 2005, and if you go to the back of either of the books, it says "Coming Soon, Phoenix 4." So I had planned on it coming out right away, and it just
You know what? How many games out there right now that have like the ad pamphlets in them advertise a game that never came to fruition
mhm.
or came out a long time later due to delays? So that's common in this industry.
I know,
People
I
should be
know.
expecting that. You know, and that's interesting. I think a lot of, especially the newer generation, thanks to the internet, they don't think about books and video games.
Well, the thing with it's always been gamers, if they have disposable cash, they're gonna buy games. They, like you said, they don't care about books. They don't want to read. And somebody just gave me a review on Amazon. I had pretty good ratings. Someone just gave me, I think, a 2-star or 3-star review, complaining that the book is mostly about console history. And you can find anything you want on Wikipedia. So,
You know what? You can find anything you want on Wikipedia, but that doesn't always mean it's right. And
right.
you know what? There are actually consoles that I look into. That I'm working on a display right now at the time of this recording, because I love all consoles. Right now, I'm focusing on handhelds, and there's a lot of handhelds that there's not a lot of documentation on at all. And I'm looking as best I can, and I'm like, oh my God, you know, I might be the one to write the most comprehensive anything on this just by piecing together the little
I'll
pieces I
go for
found.
it. But the thing you got to make sure is what you find on Wikipedia is correct. I
Of
mean, I
course.
did use Wikipedia as a source, but I used a lot of sources. I didn't depend on Wikipedia, but as you just said, I found a lot of stuff I never heard of. Like reading something on Wikipedia, it led me to something else, which led me to something else, which led me to something else. So I found that invaluable. But I didn't trust it to be true in anything.
Oh
And
yeah.
I had to do separate investigations.
What would you say is the most interesting thing that you didn't know about that you found in the discovery of Phoenix 4?
Oh, there's so many consoles, like especially Japanese consoles I never even heard of that just suddenly came out of the woodwork.
Oh yeah. Well,
And then, of
that's
course,
true.
then I had to go to eBay and try to find them. Because most of the pictures in the book, there's about over 1,000 pictures. Most of them I took myself. There's about 3 or 4 consoles that I didn't take, but the majority of them I did. So it means I own them all.
Oh man. I'm looking for an Adventure Vision. That's the only one I'm
I
missing for the
don't have
portals.
one.
Oh man.
Sorry.
That's the only one I'm missing right now
Yeah, well, of the handheld
of the
stuff. You
handhelds.
could
Yeah.
call that a handheld.
Well, I consider it a handheld. You know.
Okay.
But see, that's the thing I love about this industry, is that there's so many facets to it that a lot of people don't realize. Then there's a lot of history. There is a lot of history. Even right now, like a lot of Nintendo gamers, they're aware of the 3DS and the DS and the touchscreen, you know, and then obviously the Wii U had it and the Switch and mobile phones and all that. And a lot of people don't even realize where that started from in the handhelds. And if you ask some people who may know, they may think the Gamecom, Tiger's Gamecom, which I thought for the longest time, I was like, oh, you know, Gamecom actually entered it. And then I found out Bandai did a console in Japan that was a handheld that also was touchscreen that came out 2 years prior. And I was like, what? This is a thing?
A programmable game?
It was a handheld game portable with interchangeable cartridges that used touchscreen controls. Came out 2 years prior.
Huh.
I was like, what? I tracked one down. I can't say the name because it's all in Japanese, but I actually got one for display. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is insane. All this time I thought it was the Gamecom.
I have to look into this.
Yeah, well, see, maybe I just taught you something.
Right? No, I thought it was a game come too.
Oh, look at that. See,
I'm trying to think back. I don't even remember now because there's just so much information in that book.
that's the thing. There's so much of this, and a lot of it is forgotten about because it's very small. Failed consoles are something I love. I love failed consoles.
Mm.
You can see I've got a Virtual Boy. I love failed consoles. Um, and I love that thing, by the way. But to me, there's an allure to the history of failed consoles and why they failed more so than the successful ones. And I think everyone knows. Like if you say, "Hey, do you know the history of PlayStation?" Most people will know. And, they may not know all the SNES CD
Hmm.
stuff, but they'll know the majority. You know the history of Microsoft? Well, yeah. They may not know the Windows 3.1 history and the MS DOS and the QDOS stuff, but they know the general thing. And the same with Sega, and same with Nintendo. Although many people may not know they're from the 1800s, and but they know the general stuff. But then when you say, "Hey, even the Gamecom, do you know the history of Tiger Electronics?" No. Didn't they used to make those handheld things in the 80s and 90s? Yeah.
They
But
also
you know
made
what they
games for the Atari VCS.
There you go. See, and a lot of people don't even realize that. Like this history, this industry is such a rich history, and there's so much to it, and it's all like interwoven, and that's what I find fascinating. That the more you dig, the more interesting things surface. And I'm glad to hear that you opened it up to Japanese and to European history, because there's a lot there.
I
Now,
mean, I'm sure there's so much I missed too, and that's what for the next edition, if there ever is one.
Phoenix 5, here we go. And that's the thing. Like you said, you know, even with the other book, it's constantly needs updating. And Phoenix 4 goes up to 2015, right?
Uh, the black and white edition goes up to 2015. There's also a deluxe color edition hardcover, and that goes to 2016.
Okay. So that one
But
goes
the
2016.
2016 chapter is available to download from my website.
Okay. So that's 2016. But we're in 2018 as the
Yeah.
recording of this video, and you may be watching it right now and it's 2025. And you're like, "Oh, those people from the 6, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, you crazy people." But the point is that this industry is constantly growing, and there it can never be 100% definitive because there's always going to be improvements. There's always going to be things found out.
Hmm.
But your book is the most, you know, divisive piece. It is the closest we have to a definitive, and that is why people have labeled it the Bible. They
I
have
mean, there
said
are warts in it. People write to me, this is wrong. And I have an errata on my website of all the stuff that's been discovered. And hope, if there is another edition, that's all going to be fixed. But it's not perfect. But
you know what you should do. I don't know if you ever watch Conan O'Brien, um, but he has a segment on audience corrections. Have you ever seen that?
no, I mean, I used to watch him when he was still on NBC.
He does audience corrections, where he has audience members tell him when he's wrong, and he proves that he's in fact correct. And obviously he's wrong, but he does it in such a
Uh,
joking manner that it's funny. You should do something like that. You should be like, "Well, no, you're wrong because of this," and just do some kind of
so
joke.
when the book came out and the first review on Amazon, the person gave it 2 stars. And this guy just went through all these things about what was wrong with it. And we're looking at it, and some made sense, but some of his stuff did not make sense. So we went through back and forth, me and this guy. Why do I think why am I right? He's going back, why he's right. And finally, we agreed on things, and he's now a good friend of mine. I go to him if I have questions.
Well, you know what? That's the thing too. In this life, not everybody's going to know everything. People aren't perfect. I'm not perfect. Far from it. But if you come at people and say you're wrong because blah 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 blah, you suck, that doesn't do anything. But a lot of friendships of mine came from that too. You, and that's again part of this industry. There are people. I'm a collector. You're a collector. A lot of people in this industry are, and everyone's collection is different. And when I meet people, it's not like, well, my collection is better than yours,
Mm-hmm.
or your collection is better than mine. It's, hey, show me some of your best stuff, and maybe I can find some joy in it to add to my collection, and I'll show you some of my best stuff, and maybe you'll find some love. And that's how we discover new games to play and new systems to collect for. And I think that's so wonderful in this industry. And your book has helped put that into words, especially for the everyman. The everyman who doesn't understand why people have walls and walls of video games. Like, well, you're never going to play those. Why do you even have them? Because there's a history there.
Well, I
There's a
used to call
story.
myself the Game Scholar, which is actually Electronic Gaming Monthly magazine gave me that name. And then now I'm calling myself the father of video game history, because it was after my book came out that all of a sudden this retro stuff all came out. That's when Napa started. That's how I found out, get in touch with all these other collectors was from my book. And that's how CG eventually started, and which became National Video Game Museum. So that's my latest title.
I like it. And you know what? There's meaning behind it because it brings people together, and that's important. I mean, that is absolutely uh, truly important for this industry, because we need that. We need
Mhm.
some place that we could go. And there's a ton of history textbooks. Yeah, you can find out about every battle of the Civil War and every battle of the Revolutionary War, and the Mayflower and the
Yeah.
War of 1812. They're all there. You can find them. But video game history as a culture, it's often looked at like that's not important. The Video Game Museum, like you mentioned, Joe and his buddies. Um, I'd love to go down there and see it. I'm incredibly jealous of them and their collections, but I think
Well,
it's great.
when I went, because they had a VIP dinner when they first opened, so they invited me. And Joe said to me, he goes, "So what do you think?" I said, "Oh, feels like my, see, looking at my collection." Getting around, I mean, they have so much more, but
Oh yeah, but I think that's so important. They just got into a couple other museums. They're opening up video game wings, and I think as a culture, video games are now starting to get that respect that movies and books have had for a long time, even television.
well,
And
someone asked me that in an interview. I think Twin Galaxies just asked me that
oh wow,
this week. And they said, "Will video games ever reach the same level as movies and music and stuff?" And I said, once we have a generation that played video games all their lives, that's when it's going to start happening. When everybody alive played video games, and we still got a lot of older people who lived before 1972, and to them, video games are still a waste of time or a fad and stuff. They won't accept it yet. But another generation, another 10, 20 years, I think we'll have that.
I agree. I think as a medium, it wasn't a fad. I can understand the '70s. Some people thinking it was going to be a fad. It wasn't. Even after Atari killed it in '83, Nintendo brought it back.
Well, I don't agree that Atari killed it, but
Oh, there's a debate right there. Well, there was a lot of factors. It wasn't just
oh
Atari.
yeah, wasn't just
Atari
ET.
certainly. No. Atari did not help that situation. But we could at least agree that Nintendo did bring it
Oh
back,
yeah,
at
they
least in
brought it
North
back.
America.
There's no question about that, of course.
Now, the whole aspect of this history, and like you said, like the culture. Have you found an acceptance level difference between the older players versus the younger generation? Like if people come up to you, like the younger ones, and go, "Oh, you just wrote a book. You don't know. I'm playing Fortnite or I'm playing Call of Duty, and that's all I care about."
Well, I do
Um,
get a lot of flack that I don't have any computer games mentioned in my book, and I explain. I mean, people get mad when I say this, but I have to draw the line somewhere. The book's almost 900 pages, so if I include computer games, forget it. But I draw the line where I say I only cover games that are playable on systems that are specially built for it. And with that thought in mind, to me, a computer game is software like a word processor is. And that's where I draw the line. And people don't like that. Oh, you should include computer games. Well, it's not so easy just to say include. There's a whole history that has to be investigated.
the whole
And
new
that make
book.
the book like 2,000 pages.
I a lot of people ask me that too because they say, "Oh, do you collect everything?" I said, "No, I collect everything but computer." And a lot of people say, "Why don't you collect computer games? Don't you like playing on the computer?" And I do. I like certain games I do play on the computer, but I don't count any computer game I have as part of my collection. And they say, "Why?" So because a lot of them you needed key codes, or special books. You need to turn to page 54
And you
of the
also
manual.
need a computer that can play them.
And that's the other thing. A lot of computers aren't backwards compatible. And I said I can have 100 computers in my house, or I could have 100 consoles or more. And I'd rather have the consoles
Mhm.
because there's unique experiences. And I'd rather just not focus on the computer games and just stay with,
Well,
here for
when you put
this.
a disc in a PS4, it's going to play on the PS4. You
Yep.
don't know if you're going to put a disc in the computer if it's going to play or not.
100% agree.
So,
And you have to draw the line somewhere.
yeah.
And some people don't understand. Some people are PC gamers. There's a whole online thing, PC master race versus, the whole console war thing is stupid to begin with. But it's interesting that mindset, and I think a lot of the younger generation have that mindset without ever really living through a console war. What we have now is not a console war.
Hmm.
The developers of Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony all love each other. They may make boneheaded decisions, but they're all very friendly with each other. They all have each other's consoles. They all play. The real war, Atari versus Intellivision, and then obviously later Sega versus Nintendo, and everything in between, Atari getting in there and stuff. It was all messy, and it was all marketing, and it was
Right.
brilliant, but kids on the playgrounds, we were eating it up because we didn't have enough money for both of them. Now it's not really the case. Now people don't even care about the other systems. They're hey, I got an Xbox, I got a PlayStation, I got a Switch. That's all I need. That's
Well,
all my friends play on.
my son had his Xbox One hooked up, and that's all he played. Especially all he played was NHL 18 anyway. But he decided I forgot the name of the show. I think it's called a baseball game,
MLB, yeah.
and it's only available on the PS4. So he says you got to open up your PS4. So now he has a.
And as a kid, I grew up with just one system too. Actually, I grew up with the Atari and the Commodore. I'm dating myself, but
I didn't grow up with video games, so I'm dating myself even more.
true, but still, it's one of those things where I didn't get systems until I was later on, like sixth grade, seventh grade, and I was very appreciative when I got to play. And now kids take it very much for granted,
Well, like everything else.
like everything else. And I've told people, when I've done my own little sessions, to talk to people, I put on displays. Actually, I have a display as of this recording live right now in the library, my local library. But I've talked with
Cool.
kids, and they've said to me, they say, why do you show with this stuff? Why do you show handhelds? What's the point? And I said, because your generation, talking to kids, they don't know anything outside of an iPhone. They think this right here is oh wow, this is video gaming. This is where it all started. No, I heard one kid say once, this is terrible. Um, Someone mentioned Tetris, and the kid's like, "Oh, yeah, Tetris. That started. That was on my iPhone. That's where it started." And I'm like, "No. Not only is that not where it started, but Tetris has a very long and complicated history.
Well, Petrus, that's one of my favorite stories. I gave it its own chapter in the book because
Deserves its own chapter. It's huge. The
yeah,
history of the
I
game."
can't mention in just a few lines. So it's the only thing that has its own chapter because the book is chronological by year, but I included appendix with the Tetris story. But you just remind me of something else. Why the fourth edition took so long to come out, also, and one of the reasons it took so long is because I didn't know what to do with iPhones when they came out in 2007. Do I include them or don't I include them? So that took me the longest time to figure out how I'm going to deal with them. And I finally decided to treat them like computers since games are just downloaded like every other app.
I agree. I don't collect them for the same reason. The only download only that I have, and I don't collect for it obviously because it's download only, is like the PSP Go,
Yeah, yeah.
because it's part of the same family.
Mm-hmm.
The Ouya, because of the history behind it, it's again a console, and like on live, like stuff like that. But iPhones, yeah, I don't say no, no, no.
But to me, those are consoles. So.
Yes, absolutely, and
But
that's the
anyway, but what you're downloading on those are games. You're not downloading applications and stuff. It doesn't have another purpose other than, I'm saying they don't have another purpose other than to play games, where the iPhone has a million different reasons to exist.
What about the gray areas like Amazon's Fire TV, which has, they bought a game development studio and they've got exclusive games and they've got, their own controller and all that stuff?
I think I do mention it, but I don't go into detail. I think when it first came out, I think I did mention it.
There's a lot of those Android-based consoles. The Mad Catz has
I
one.
do mention them. They're all in there. Because again, to me, they're consoles. They're downloading games, but even though they're Android-based, they're still consoles.
Is the Game Stick mentioned? That's one of the Kickstarters I backed, and I kind of regret that. Yeah, I have it. I put it in, and the most interesting thing about that system is if you take the controller and you look at the top and you pull the flap down, you see little eyes staring at you.
Oh, I didn't. That one I never hooked up. The Ouya I hooked up. But
I hooked that up too, and terrible. Another thing I backed. Oh, this is gonna be great,
One thing I'm looking forward to, which should be coming next week, is my Retron 77.
Yeah. See, I only got one Retron. I got the Retron 5 because everyone's making a big deal about it. I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
Yeah. Well, I like the idea I could play my Atari cards on there. Also, it'll take an SD card, and I have like every ROM, so now I could play, because I hate playing them on the computer.
Yeah. Yeah, the Retron 77 looks interesting because it's like there's really no updated, 2600 kind of deal. But
I got every flashback, but it's not the same.
I think I'm getting rid of my flashbacks. It's too much room. Too much room. I have them. I don't use them.
They're collections.
They're part of the collection, but they're clone consoles, really. I mean, they're not even.
When I got the 8, I wanted to hook it up, but I have no room on my TV to hook it up right now. So.
Even the portable. I got like that portable. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great. I didn't like it.
I was so excited when it came out. I couldn't wait, but I wasn't impressed with it. And I think maybe the reasons why is after all these years, I don't think Atari's games were that great. It was the third-party companies that had really good games.
You know what the problem is for me? A lot of people, when they think Atari, they think the 2600. I didn't grow up with the 2600. I actually grew up with the 8-bit computers, the 400, the 800.
Oh, me too. I mean,
and when I play like the 2600 version of some of these games, I'm like, these are terrible. Because the 8-bit versions were way better. Way better. The world's better.
Well, when I was writing the book ABC the VCS, I said, I'm writing about a book about Atari. I should get an Atari word processor to write it with. So I bought my Atari 800, and that's what I wrote the book on. But then I also discovered programming, basic programming, so I spent a lot of time on that.
You know what? It's a world of difference. It's like, I'm trying to think of the way, like, for those that don't understand, like, oh, they're both the same time period. Shouldn't it be the same? There's some people say, like, oh, well, the Wii version of a game is, inferior to the 360 or the PS3 version of the game, if you want to think along those. It's worse than that. Like, picture your 360 or PS3 game, or even, like, your Switch game now running on, like, an NES or an SNES. Like, it's worlds different, and it's so interesting.
It is, but also, when you think of what the programmers had to do to get those games, it's incredible.
Even now, there's a lot of people that, it's not just hit a button. There's a lot of shortcuts, to get things running. And there's, some developers that are able to push and others that aren't. And it's interesting because you look at, even with something more recent example, you look at NBA 2K18 on the Switch. One save file, just a save file, is larger than all of Super Mario Odyssey's. And it's like, what? How? How is that possible? Like, how did this happen? Why is it? And it's so interesting how everything is so different, even between studios like that. And Panic Button is doing a phenomenal job right now on the Switch. They are converting games that shouldn't be possible on the Switch, like Wolfenstein 2 and Doom. And it really shows the talent and the passion that's there in this gaming industry. And not only from the developers, obviously, but from us, the receivers of it, that it shows that there's love there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this book is of yours. It shows your passion. It shows your love. And that's why I think it needs to be read. I think it needs to be, I plan to do it I love the history, and I'm kind of curious. I almost want to go through it with a fine tooth comb. Like, all right, let me see if I could find any.
No, I
Errors.
welcome that.
And that's true though. A lot of people don't give it a chance. Like I don't know how deep you go into Nintendo's history. Do you actually talk about like their time in the 1800s, their love hotels, their gambling,
No, not
their
that
toys?
much. No, it's very brief. I mean, everything can only be covered briefly. So I mentioned, of course, they started in 1869. I think it was 1869, and with the playing cards, but that's about it.
See,
You
I've
need a
gotten
whole
into.
book to write their history. So
There is. It's called. There's a blogger that wrote a book on it, with all the different toys and stuff. It's fascinating. I started getting into that too. I'm like, this hobby never ends. Like, there's just so much to it.
I mean, I'm sure
It's
you know
insane.
this, but this is something I only discovered last year. Uh, that the rifle for the Odyssey was built by Nintendo,
Yeah.
and so now I went out. I found one of the early Nintendo light guns, and I bought one.
Oh, nice. I'm still missing one of
And
those.
they're exactly the same, except that the Odyssey one has the cord, to hook it up to the system. But otherwise, you look at them; they're exactly the same.
I have an Odyssey one literally upstairs. I didn't check. Does it actually say Nintendo on it?
No, it just says made in Japan.
Ah, man, because that'd be interesting to
Oh
see.
yeah,
Like hidden there. Because I honestly I never looked at mine too closely. I have it, but it's.
and the technology was completely different between the two.
Oh,
But Nintendo was the only one doing light guns, so Magnavox went to them.
that is. See, that's interesting. Like I knew that they did it, but I didn't realize why. I never looked into it. But yeah, the Odyssey is one of those. I have it. I'm not gonna hook it up
Yeah,
just because it's a pain in the butt. The forms and all that on the TV and the cartridges are little skinny things.
I have a brown box also.
Yeah, I got that too.
You got
The
a brown
the
box?
shipping box. I got the shipping box with
No,
the.
no, no.
Oh,
The brown
yeah.
box, the prototype.
Oh, you got a pro. Oh, see, I don't have a program. I'm
Oh, it's not
I'm
for you.
happy to have an Odyssey.
No, when Ralph gave the Smithsonian the original prototype, the brown box, he made over the years like another 2 dozen for other museums to have. So I have the first of the reproductions.
Oh, see, that's awesome. See, it pays. Here it is, kids. It's not what you know; it's who you know. Because there you go. I mean, that's insane. Did he autograph it for you too?
No, I didn't ask him to because I didn't want him to think that was, I wanted it for personal reasons. But uh, a friend of mine bought the Odyssey when they first came out back in 1972. We're still close friends now. So, and he still has that Odyssey. So, several years ago, I took it up to New Hampshire with me, and Ralph signed it. And so he
Wow.
still has that. But I never wanted Ralph to sign my Odyssey because I need the Odyssey for pictures for my book. And the Odyssey is only one place you could really sign it, right on the front. So I said, the hell with it. Everyone's getting his autograph. I want his autograph too. So I brought a Simon up, and he signed the Simon.
Ah, there you go. There you go. Now, who else? Who else? You obviously met Ralph there. Anyone else that you happen to have pocket? Like, oh yeah, he's also my friend.
Well, I mean, he just died. Ted Dabney, who died about 2 months
Yeah.
ago. We were really close friends. I would call him like every week. I never met him in person, but we would Skype, we would talk, we would email. And the funny thing is, I'd call him when I get to work 7:30 in the morning. He lived on the West Coast, 4:30 in the morning, and he said, "Oh, we're up early." I feel guilty calling him, yet he get on, Lenny, how you doing?
That
So, but
that's fantastic.
it was really bad when he told me he had the esophagus cancer. That really was bad. I really wanted to meet him, and then the Smithsonian interviewed him in March. They sent a 9-man crew or something to his house, and he called me out. Or no, they sent a 7-man crew, and they interviewed him for 9 hours, and then he called me. He goes, finally, he couldn't believe all these people took their time to do this, and he's finally realized what he did was important. He never looked at himself that way before.
I'm glad he at least realized that before he died.
Oh yeah. But then a friend of mine said, "Well, why don't we go out to California?" And a friend of mine does documentaries, and he goes, "I'll just tape, I'll just record you and Ted talking about anything." I said, "That's a great idea." And I called Ted, and I knew he would, if I proposed that, he'd be for it. But before I could ask him, he's telling me he's having a bad day. The first time is, and he couldn't tell now if he's going to have a bad day or a good day. So I couldn't afford to fly out 6 hours and drive 2 hours north to find he's having a bad day. So we never did it. So
Yeah,
that's one of my biggest regrets, that I never met him personally.
that's the unfortunate thing about, life. You never know when you're going to have a good or bad day. Even us, for those of you watching, we've been trying to have this interview for a week, and we're both a little still dealing with mucus, problems the whole time
Some
because,
New Jersey disease going around.
yeah, we've had some bad days, and that's the funny thing. That's the relevant thing. It's still the truth, and that's what makes every day special. That's what makes every day, a game day you should play. You should game, and this industry as a whole is so important. Obviously, if you're watching this, you care about this industry, and obviously, Leonard, you care about this industry just like the rest of us. You care about it more in the sense that you did something about it, which I do have to say thank you for, because
Thank you.
it's true.
I
A lot
didn't
of
do
people
it;
don't
someone
know.
else would. Stephen Kent came along not long after me.
You know what? There's a lot of people who might have done it, but that doesn't make it done as well. And anyone can make a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have this, this is your video camera. I can go out and make a movie. It's not going to be a Steven Spielberg movie.
Well,
you
my
know,
son is funny. My older son, he just graduated law school and now he's studying for the bar, but he argues everything. So when I said, I think on the Twin Galaxy interview, that I was the first one to write a video game history of video games, he says, "How do you know you were the first one?" I said, "It's the first book." He goes, "How do you know somebody else didn't write one but didn't publish it?" So that's what I got to
the
deal with.
first published one. You want to fight me?
Oh, he'll fight me on that one too.
You know what though? You need people to challenge you. That's how you grow, and that's funny. Now you said your son plays NHL, and
Now
he's
he's playing the
playing
show all the
MLB.
time.
Is that what he does? His sports games, or does he play any of the older stuff with you? Like,
No, I got the Flashback Classics for the Xbox One, and I beat him in Space Invaders, and he wasn't impressed with it. So that's the last time that ever went on. Yeah, they couldn't care less about the old games.
and I think that's sad. I think some of my greatest childhood memories were playing those Atari games with my father, and appreciating them and the time we had. And even now, I'll get him over and be like, "Oh, let's play these games," and he's like, "I don't understand these games now," and I'm like, "Oh, man." So there is an Atari collection coming to the Switch, and I can't wait.
Oh, I can. Yeah, me too.
I'll be like, "Oh, that'll be great," because then we can do it portably and anywhere. I'd be like, "Dad, let's sit down and have some classic games." But I think it's important to spend that time and to appreciate that time. And
But the first games my kids started playing was Sonic on the Sega 3. And that's, well, yeah, I'm so proud they're playing video games now, but they didn't want to see anything older even then.
now, when you say Sega 3, you mean the Sega Genesis 3, or are you talking the SG Mark 3?
I'm sorry, the Genesis 3.
See, that's two Sega 3s technically in that
No,
sense.
you're absolutely right. And the funny thing about the Genesis 3 is when my younger son started kindergarten, he became friends with this kid Adam, who became his best friend. And Adam's mother designed the box for Genesis 3 for Majesco.
Majesco, yeah, that's right. Majesco was here in New
In
Jersey.
Edison, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So
Actually,
when I was at Korg's last year, somebody was selling one, so I bought it, gave it to her.
that's interesting. Yeah, I actually met somebody from Majesco, and they're no longer around, sadly. But that
But
was our
anyway,
claim to fame.
do something medical stuff, or at least.
Yeah, no video game stuff though. But yeah, that's another thing. A lot of people don't even realize the Sega Genesis 3 was not even made by Sega. It was Majesco. Same with the Genesis 4, if you want to call it that.
What's Genesis 4?
It was another one of those Majesco put out later on,
Oh, I
much
didn't even
later
know
on.
about that. I mean, I know they did the handheld one, but
Yeah, they did one.
I know Brazil or something.
Brazil has one too, I
Yeah,
believe. Yeah, there's a lot of those because Sega was big in Brazil. They have
it
like
still is.
it's so interesting too because all the different. I mean, even us here, we have the Master System, but it's really just the SG 300, or 3000. It's the third model of the SG 1000.
No, but they did come out the Master System in England, over in Japan.
In Japan afterwards, yeah, but it's really the
Right, afterwards.
it's
I don't have one. I got to get one, but it's so damn expensive now.
Japanese Master System.
Yeah, because it's different. It has the wider cartridges slots. I mean, those the smaller cartridge slots.
I, I limit myself to American consoles unless it's like handhelds or
Well,
exclusives.
I did it
If
one time too, and now that went out of control.
my wife would not let me, as it is, like be like, hey, how many do you need?
Oh,
All of them.
I hear that all the time too. 9 years ago, we built an extension to our house, so we added a kitchen. And I said, well, if we're adding a kitchen, we have to add a room underneath it for me. And so I got my room.
Lucky you. I've been trying to get my wife to add an extension to the house for video games, and she refuses. She
But it
downright
wasn't for video games; it was for a kitchen. I'll
I've
tell you
tried to
what,
do that double decker thing.
it was supposed to be twice as wide, but I lost my job just then, so we
Oh.
had to cut it in half. I need that room now.
I tried to get my wife to go into a sub basement earlier today. Like, let's just keep going below this floor, like she's like, is that even possible? I said, I don't care. Let's do it. You know, we need more room.
How is
So
your wife with your hobby?
she's very good, thankfully. I'm appreciative. She see, I got in. I met my wife playing video games, so
Okay,
it kind of helps, but it's also a kind of a curse. What I mean by that is, I'm the game collector more so than her. And my mother just passed recently, and she was a
sorry.
big Barbie collector. Big, big. I'm talking all the originals. And she told me before she died, she's like, I'm sorry. I said, for what? She's like, for you having to deal with the Barbies now.
You got rid of them though, right?
We're selling them through consignment.
Because when my mother died, actually my mother died a week before Ralph did, but she left us with these porcelain dolls, like 200 of
We
them.
still have them
And
too.
those there's no market for.
No market. We
So
can't give them away.
we've given some away, but we've still got a ton of them.
And that's the thing. So, like with my wife, I try to tell her, like, look, these are the things of value. These are the things worth looking into. I said, but most importantly, I don't care what you do. When I'm gone, play. I want you to play. What you would, because that's why I collect. I don't collect due to monetary. I know some
I
people
mean,
do.
neither. I don't either.
Some people are like, oh my god, are you going to keep that sealed? I'm like, I buy a game, I open it. And there are certain
Well,
games that I
the
haven't
funny
had the
thing is,
chance
I
of.
feel that way, but when I was doing the book and I had to take pictures, uh, Tiger came out with this one system, and I can't think of the name. It was like LED. They came out in three formats. One you put on your head,
R Zone.
the R Zone, yeah.
It
Well,
came out in 4 formats.
uh-oh.
It
I
came out
only
in
have
four.
three.
I'm going to guess the one you're missing is the Data Zone,
What is that?
which took me the longest time to find. And some people don't think it exists, but I own one.
Oh, you
I
got to send me a picture of it.
I will. They
I
came out
have
in
to
four.
look it up. How did I miss that?
Nah, I did too. And I'll tell you what, I learned about it when I was doing a display for a library. I put an RZone XPG in there, and I was writing a little bit about it. And I was like, wait, there's a fourth model? I didn't know there was a fourth model.
I've never heard of it.
Ah,
And
I,
I got them from when they came out originally, too.
I'll tell you what, after we finish recording, I will show that to you.
Okay, cool. But what I was saying was two of my R zones are sealed. And so, of course, normally I just open it up, take the pictures. But when I saw what they're worth, I said, I can't do this. So I had to go on eBay and buy another one that was not sealed.
I have two sealed as well, and I hate them because they're so big I can't even display them. They're sitting like in a box, and I'm like, what do I do with them? They're just terrible packaging. And the super screen is even bigger. I'm like,
Oh, yeah, that's
what? Yeah, it's like how I can't display this. This thing's like 16 inches. Like that's a lot of shelf space I'm losing.
I got to see your collection.
I'm working on it. It's something I plan to show off afterwards. And our podcast viewers, I've heard the stories as I'm going on it. There's other issues. I'm trying right now trying to get wood to build more shelves. We're building a
Oh, my
display
God.
case because I tried to get a display case made, and they're like, "Oh, we want $3,000." I'm like, "No, I can get this thing built for like a fraction of that, but we need certain size lumber and special order, and I'm just keep telling myself at the end it's going to be worth it."
Look at Michael Thomason. You know,
Yeah, he's the one who just sold off everything, isn't he?
yeah. Now he's rebuilding it again, but
Oh, is he rebuilding?
yeah, he's a close friend of mine.
Why? Why did you know? And for those of you listening that have no idea, let me do this was actually big on the news. Big video game auction here in Jersey. A
No,
lot of
no,
people.
no. That was
Not that one.
no. That's Bill Lagadouche.
Oh yeah, that's okay.
No, Michael's up in Buffalo. He had the world's largest software collection.
Okay.
In this book.
Yeah, the one where he's sitting on the floor holding the book
Yeah,
with it.
yeah,
He's building it up again.
yeah.
Oh my god. Well, I know a lot of people that have sold off their collection to start again. I can't.
I couldn't do that. I
I
mean,
couldn't.
an example I use is I threw all my Atari 2600 boxes away back in the 80s because I lived in an apartment with my parents. So and there's no way I want to get them back. I still have all the manuals, I still have all the cartridges, but I don't care about the boxes.
You know what? I did the same thing. I didn't throw my boxes away, but what we did is we would do. My dad was kind of crafty, so he would cut the boxes, and we would use like the freezer bags, and he would put the
Okay.
front of the box, then like the manual and the discs, and then the back of the box, so it fit, and we would put it
Oh,
like in a
that's
filing
cool.
cabinet because it saved a lot of space.
Well, I did
Uh,
cut my boxes up and I stapled the front to the back, and I don't know what happened to them. And when my mother died, I thought I'd find them, but they never materialized.
so even like Nintendo stuff, I don't put them in the boxes. I keep them all out on the shelf, easy access. And some people have asked me like, why don't you go for the boxes? I said, one, every time you open up the box, you're gonna damage it. Two, all boxes I have, I just fold up, so I keep them protected. And three, if I went for all the boxes, that's thousands upon thousands of extra dollars on cardboard. I could buy other games that I want to enjoy. Oh, it's everyone's different. I don't for a cartridge system. I don't care. But disc-based systems, I have to get them complete. That's me.
Oh yeah, I mean I'm the same way. I need the jewel box, I need the
Yep.
instruction manual, but not the we have to worry about those anymore.
That's a whole new can of worms. So
Tommy
let's
Tallarico just announced, for his new
your
television
television thing.
that
Yeah.
all the games that you play, that you won't need an instruction manual, that they're simple enough you won't need an instruction manual. So I wrote to him, I said, Tommy, but I mean, even people like instruction manuals, at least in my mind. I said, even the simplest Atari games all had instruction manuals. I said, I don't believe you need a backstory, but I think you should have instruction manuals. And I said, I've written 7 manuals. I'll volunteer to do it. But he came back. He goes, nope, don't want them.
That's part of our childhood, buying the stuff at Toys R Us, which obviously now is no longer there, and riding home, opening the box and pulling out that manual and reading it. And then when you go to school the next day, you can't bring your game, so you bring the manual and you sit there in class when you're supposed to be reading, doing your homework, and you're reading this manual and you can't wait to get home to play it. And that was part of our culture, and that's lost unfortunately on today's games. But
But people don't read, so
well, I mean, hopefully people are reading your book. So if you are interested in video game history and you enjoy stuff like our little discussion here, please do Leonard and yourself a favor. Go to Amazon.com right now. You can get, and we'll put the links in the description as well. You can get Phoenix 4, The History of Video Game Industry, right now. You can get it for Kindle. It's $20. The paperback is $40, and the hardcover with the extra chapter is $80. But this is an incredible book. I've seen it. It's really, really pretty, really great, and definitely something for your coffee table. Like, this is something that should be out there. That's what I'm gonna do with my copy when I get it, right there on the coffee table, because it's part of history. And please, at least give them the Kindle. Go out there and give it a read. Because I think you'd enjoy it, especially if you enjoy gaming history, whether it just be Nintendo stuff or Sony or Microsoft or whatever. just go out there and try. So Leonard, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Barry. It was nice meeting you finally.
Yes, finally, after all this time trying to get together. And remember, everybody, for your other Nintendo news, please go to NintendoFuse.com. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel where we have other industry talks like this, as well as our game chat reviews, our podcast, and a bunch of other great content updated weekly. Thank you so much for joining, and have a great night.